Is a recession coming or is it already here? And how is that gonna affect your collection? Today, we dive in what to do during hard economic times. If you're watching this in 2022, then you know that we are in the middle of hard economic times. Stock values have plummeted, and if you're in the market, you know it's hard to open up your statements right now or that 401k. And if you collect other markets like art, coins, cards, comics, or cars, you've seen drops in those valuations as well. But how does a recession affect collectors, especially vintage collectors? And historically, toy collecting and investing in toys usually take hits after the main market takes a hit. And even if you're not watching this in 2022, today I'm gonna go over what you can do to get yourself ready for economic hardships and what to do with your collection. And if you're new to the channel, I've been collecting the Star Wars Kenner vintage line, and I did that from scratch. So if you need to go back and watch episode 1 to find out what that really means, go ahead and do that, catch up, and then get back right here. And for those of you who have caught up, you know I'm not done yet. I'm close, but I have a few more to go. And some of the more expensive figures are still left for me to collect. So that means I might have to get resourceful in order to get those, especially during a recession. But what is a recession exactly? This might be a little economic lesson, so here we go. Google defines it as a period of economic decline identified by a negative fall in GDP in 2 successive quarters. Now, last quarter, quarter 1, we saw a fall in GDP, and we are coming up on Q2, and it definitely looks like we will be at a falling GDP once again. So a recession is imminent. That means that we just went through a period of inflation, and we are still going through that. We saw gas prices skyrocket, housing prices skyrocket, and what's the Fed doing? Well, what are they late on doing? The Fed is raising interest rates, hoping to curb those skyrocketing prices and helping the market correct itself. And when that happens, and sometimes when it's too late, a recession happens. And in that, people stop and curb their spending simply because no one has the money to freely spend on goods that they don't seem necessary. So rent, food, gas, school, all necessary, and things like toy collecting, unnecessary. So how will this affect your collection? Well, let's go back to the last recession, 2008. Toy makers across the board saw sales plummet. Mattel, one of the world's biggest, saw net sales drop 15% in just the first quarter, and a global drop of 23% worldwide. In Europe alone, it was a 26% drop. Latin America, 21%, Asia, 15%, and all in the first quarter. And things did get worse. People were not spending, not buying toys. And the secondary market took an even bigger hit. So people were actually selling off collections to give themselves a financial cushion to have purchasing power in order to buy the more essential things in life that I listed earlier. It was not a collector's market to have their collectibles grow in value. And when economic times hit hard, all collectibles are hit hard. Well, with some exceptions, and we're gonna get to those later. But what's the reverse side of that? Well, let's dive into that. If people are selling their most prized collections, or at least things that they don't deem necessary inside their collections during a recession, well then, who's buying? And this is the first tip for what you should do to prepare yourself for a recession. Make sure you can have access to cash reserves of at least 6 months. Now, I'm not saying to have a cash reserve for 6 months so you can spend on collectibles during a recession. No, what I mean is to have reserves in case you fall on economic hardships that you can pay for the necessities with. Having that 6 to 12 month cushion is something that is very important to succeeding a recession. But for those of you who have a cash reserve of, let's say, 2 to 10 years, now, this is where the phrase, the rich get richer, come from. If you have the ability to have purchasing power during a period of hard economic times, it's your market. Prices on the lower tier to mid-high level tier in the beginning of a recession will go down. So in vintage terms, getting that Darth Vader 21 back, it may seem a more realistic buy during a dip, because if once it was selling for $1,000, now you're seeing sellers trying to get rid of it for $600 to $700 because no one's gonna buy it at the once high market value. And sellers right now, they need cash for life essentials. And I understand that, and it happens to us all. because no one will buy it at the once high market value. And the ones who are selling aren't really in a position to command the market value because the market economy is poor. Prices in the beginning of a recession will level off and plateau at first. This is a sign of almost testing the waters, but once a full-fledged recession is in the works, that's where sellers who are trying to pay for rents, mortgages, school, the essentials, that's where they can't command a market value for their items because items across the board are falling in price. And with collectors who understand this and have those cash reserves in order to take advantage of this type of market, this is what they look for, and this is what they follow on a daily basis. And the deeper that we get into a recession, the more it affects high-value collectibles, and the more it affects modern lines. So instead of just the Return of the Jedi vintage items falling, now we see 12-back original Star Wars mint on card prices declining. And this is only due to collectors having to sell off their items to pay for the essentials in life. And this comes to tip 2. If you can hold on to your collectibles that have a higher value in the once top market, try to do so. And if you're watching this and you've wanted to sell those top dollar items, I suggest to do it now while we're at the precipice of a recession. And if you don't, and you can stave off selling for a few years until the market bounces back, let's say in 4 to 5 years, hopefully sooner, try to do that. The market will take a dip, slowly climb, and then maybe you won't see high prices for a while, but if they do, it will take time to correct itself. And for modern collectors, well, if you collect modern, it's not necessarily for an investment. Prices for modern figures for items that are in wide release that you can buy at, let's say, Target, won't go up really unless you buy on the secondary market by scalpers who just take advantage of those prices. But the value of those figures, they never really skyrocket up, like the Power of the Force 2 line and the new retro He-Man figures. Now, there's always going to be exceptions with modern figures increasing in value right away, and that's just in any line. But for the most part, there's always millions upon millions of those figures made during a wide release run. And it's the figures that are only made in limited release runs, such as pretty much anything from HasLab or any line that has an exclusive release, mostly online. And if you feel the need to sell those at the top of the market, now is the time. But if you can ride the wave and hold on to those, be prepared to see the value drop. But over the years, those items will bounce back to the strongest because of their limited release and availability runs. And now tip 3, and if you are planning to sell items, like I said, I would plan on trying to sell them now while you can. It will be harder to sell now, so you'll have to make some competitive prices or get lucky with buyers who don't really know the market potentially falling, but most buyers still have available cash right now. And with interest rates rising, prices continuing to rise on shipping, gas prices, the housing market prices that are still rising, although at a slower rate, people are going to stop purchasing. And the things that get hit the hardest, toys. People will actually spend more on entertainment like video games and movies, but luxury items like toys, they have a history of having a rough time in the market, and I think always will. There are some unicorns that will almost never take a hit. Movie-used props will always hold their value because most of those items are one-of-one items, like a screen-used Darth Vader helmet, or this model prop that was just sold at auction in LA for $2.3 million. Wow. But there's also vintage Grail items that will almost never take hits in value. A rocket-firing Boba Fett, carded 12-backs of double telescoping lightsaber figures, early bird special figures, mint in sealed baggies. Grail items that only the top 5% of collectors can afford anyway. Those will hardly ever take a hit because those items aren't changing hands all the time. And when they do, they are from seasoned collectors who can afford those in their collections. So really, it's always about trying to plan ahead. So recapping over those tips, keeping a good cash reserve so you can take care of the essentials in life without having to dip into your collection assets. Selling off items now that you deem non-essential to your collection may be a good time right now before the market drops. Number 3, if you're able to afford collecting in a recession, take advantage of those items that will drop, but wait until we are in the middle of the recession to try and buy during the biggest dip. Again, that's the biggest challenge. Number 4, if you're able to have that cash reserve, try and hold off selling the items that are the most valuable in your collection. And I understand that life comes first, but you worked really hard to curate that collection, and everyone would love to still see you have it. And number 5, right now may not be the best time to invest in pre-orders or in collectibles that are deeming high prices at the top of the market. If your financial situation is almost paycheck to paycheck, I would consider curbing or even stopping spending on new items in your collection. And this episode was a result in days of research and combing through past economic records. And I am no economist, but I did do a ton of research, including watching some YouTubers like Action Figure Creator, Spector Creative, and MCE to get their takes on understanding the collecting market. And some of those episodes are really great to watch and go in depth covering what I've done, so I've left links to those episodes in the description. So today, I'm not gonna get a figure that's more on the expensive side. Even though a recession is imminent, or we're actually in one, I'm gonna take my own advice and only use my cash reserves that don't fall in to my 1 to 2 year cushion. And I have set aside funds to do this entire run. I mean, I had to make it possible, because I'm still gonna be smart about it. So today, we're gonna go after what probably was deemed a peg warmer back in 1984. Clay 2 in skiff guard disguise. And I was able to find a great example of Clay 2 skiff guard on eBay for $28, but was $34.67 after shipping and taxes. The figure and skiff staff look great, and there is a little fading in the torso of Clay 2, but this isn't for a grade, so for our display case, it's very nice. Clay 2 was first available in 1984 on the Return of the Jedi on the 77A card backs. These figures were either made at the Smile Factory or the Lily Ledy factories in Mexico. So other than country of origin stamps being different, the Lily Ledy variant will have a slightly darker tan shot color in the mold. Also, in the Lily Ledy versions, there have been known to be black painted hoods and unpainted hoods. So let's mark off this figure from our sheet, and that brings us closer to our goal. And let's go ahead and add this to our collector displays case. And I'm glad that I'm still able to get these seemingly lower price figures at the end of my run, and I did that on purpose. So if you're wanting to emulate this run, make sure that you're always looking at prices of figures, not only to know what they're priced at to buy, but what their general price points are so you can plan your run. Well, unless you buy an entire lot in a single shot. Sometimes I wish I did that. But thank you for going over with me on what it takes to try to understand a recession, and especially how it affects us collectors. And remember, I am not your financial advisor. So really make sure that you understand and know your financial position and how it relates to your collection. And if all I can do is make you aware of that and point you in the right direction of people who can give you more information, I'll take it. So before we end the episode, down in my descriptions are links for supplies that you may need for your collecting journey. And when you click and buy using my links, it does support the channel, so thank you for that. And also join me on all my other social media. The links for those are on the homepage of my YouTube channel. And we finally have our own merch store, so head on down to the descriptions to get your hands on some Padawan collector gear. And yes, there's even some Rami and Jaws gear. And if you found this episode interesting, please hit that like button. That does support the channel. And also, sharing this video helps it too. And if you want to see more videos from me, please consider subscribing and also hitting that notification bell so you know when videos go live. I post videos every Sunday with bonus content on Wednesdays. And as always, my friends, thank you, and I will see you next time. Okay, are you guys still here? Good, then that means that you can enter my giveaway. All you have to do is type #3000 in the comments to be entered to win this 80 grade sand person. And you have 48 hours from the premiere of this episode to enter. And you must be a subscriber to win. So thank you, and may the force be with you. I'll see you guys next time. If you're new to the channel, check out the welcome video, or just check out the next episode. And please subscribe if you want to follow the journey. And remember, there is no shame in being a Padawan.